All right, I'd like to call this regular meeting of the Board of Selectmen for Monday, July 12th to order. Please join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Did you just talk to Darren? Is that who you spoke to?
No, nobody answered the door when I knocked.
Oh, okay. Sure. We don't want him to feel bad if he...
Just make sure it's
Okay.
actually not common.
Thank you, everybody. It's really nice to see people here in person again at a Board of Selectmen meeting. We have two presentations. We were hoping to receive a presentation from Ed Gentile about sidewalks in town. Really important update that we've been looking forward to. And if he's here, he'll be in shortly, but we will move right to item number 2, which is a presentation from Bill Cavers from Coastal Waters Commission on their strategic plan. So Bill, please come forward.
Thanks, Jamie. Sympathizing with the basement tale. Mine wasn't water, but it's mold after the fact, so just as
Oh,
bad.
yeah.
You have to take everything out.
Yep.
It sounds the same, you gotta rip it all out anyway.
Yeah, miserable. Didn't see that coming. Thanks for having me. So I'm Bill Cavers, the chair of the Coastal Commission, or its fancier name, they're an advisory commission on coastal waters, which I drop all the time and just say Coastal Commission. It helps for people there to understand that. So the topic here tonight is a strategic plan, which I put forward to Jamie just a little while ago. The reason this came up was there was a reestablishment meeting you all had at the end of December. And I think Linda asked me to put together a piece of paper, and I hadn't put together a piece of paper trying to summarize what we do before. So that was actually a very helpful exercise. So I sort of scrambled for a couple of days to do that. But it made me think that that's an element that's missing from our commission. We have a charter that's clearly spelled out, but we don't have really an operating plan during the year or any sort of really strategies except sort of ad hoc things that come up, which you know all is good in some fashion, but the thought for strategic plan is to better engage the Board of Selectmen to whom we report, and to better advise the Board of Selectmen, give them assistance on decisions on coastal water matters. And I think a strategic document would do that. So I've come to talk to you about that tonight. And my talk, short presentation, 10 or so minutes here, and glad if you interrupt me at every stage, is actually less about the substance of a strategic plan, even though you have, I think, in front of you a strategic plan, and a little bit more about the process of getting one in place and what it would mean between us, I think. So what I'd like to do is just, if you would review with me perhaps the call it a template strategic plan I put in front of you. I think you all have a copy of it. I'd just like to go through it briefly, point out some of the elements and some of the things we could add to it to make a ongoing strategic plan that would be a mechanic between us to discuss things on the Coastal Commission. So if you turn just page through for a couple minutes here on page 2, just sort of there's an overview page, and I wanted to focus on this just for a second. It seems a bit like hyperbole. It talks about the beauty of our coast, but I really wanted to emphasize that this is really a special asset in Darien. And a lot of towns may say that about their coast, but if you ask people in Long Island Sound area who's got the most beautiful coast, a lot of them will point to Darien. It's got Maine-type rocks, you know, around Scott Cove. It's got the beautiful Connecticut sand and reed areas. It's absolutely stunning in our 3 miles long east to west zone, which has about 16 miles actually of coastline because of all its inlets and bays. So this is like a real prime asset of the town. And I think a lot of people lose sight of that because not everyone's water focused, and it's just out there, and not everyone has a boat and is on the water every weekend. But there are a lot of people who do feel that way, and a lot of people through the course of their stay in Darien turn to that and start to understand that's a prime resource. So I just want to emphasize that at the start. I think all these issues are super important to the town. So on page 3, this just outlines briefly, this is our actual charter from a Board of Selectmen resolution in 2009. And I just wanted to point out several things to it. It's really core ingredients here, items 1, 2, 3, and 7. And 1, 2, and 3 basically say we'll assist you, the Board of Selectmen, to follow the town charter. Or number 3 is to help with our shell fishing needs, which are very important but rather small. And so basically it says we're to assist or advise the Board of Selectmen, and that's really the key thing here. We are an instrument of yours to do good at the water. Number 7 is my personal favorite because it's sort of an ad hoc. It says special assignments from time to time, and I'm always coming up to Jamie and suggesting a number of things, and you're pretty well saying go for it. So it's, I think, a good opening for that, and you come up with, I think, a lot of good things to do, even without a budget. But to enact on this, to make this charter worthwhile, we have to engage with you. We have to think of ideas which will give you advice, which will assist you in the task. But you don't know the things that should be assisted upon. That's where our expertise and our on the water interest lies. And I think we need to do a better job of engaging you on that, quite frankly. I think that's been missing in past commissions. I think it's missing in our current commission. I don't think we come to you enough with ideas that need to be enacted and done on the coast. And so the idea of a strategic plan here is to do that better, to make a mechanic between us that is periodically updated. That may not be the most interesting document all years, but may be an interesting document some years as we just suggest new proposals and the like. And that would be a conversation between us as the year went by, or as the period of the years went by, maybe 1 to 3 years, depending on how often we wanted to revise it. So just to quickly go through some of these other pages, just to indicate the type of things that a strategic plan would have. On page 4, I outline the general duties of the commission. So this is sort of really what we are doing on the ground now to enact the resolution of 2009. Not all of it fits the 2009 resolution, but it reflects what's happening on the ground. So I've elucidated these and given some description that hopefully is helpful to you to understand what we do. And on page 5, I simply summarized the work we overtook in the prior year, and I sort of keep a tab on this because at the end of the year, there's usually an annual report, and we try to pull some of the highlights of that out. Page 6 simply lists the commissioners that are currently serving on the commission and the ex officio members. And what I would say is that all of these pages then plus 1, 2, or 3 additional pages, which would be more forward-looking, which would give goals and plans that we may want to jointly with the Board of Selectmen may approve to go forward on in the coming year or years. And if we go back to page 4, I'll just pluck a few of our general duties out on page 4 that I, for example, if you had to ask me right now, I think would be good addendums to this template as it's been laid out. If you go to number 5, monitoring and protecting the coastal water quality. We have a unified water study we undertake in Darien. It's part of a region-wide study in Long Island Sound, and we go out for 6 months of the year and sample the water quality in 3 of our harbors, Cove and Darien Harbor and the Scott Cove complex area. That for the last 2 years we've gotten some bad findings. We've had turbidity or cloudiness ratings that have been Fs. And that's not allowed us to rise above a B grade, but actually get some C grades for our harbors, because cloudy water doesn't allow things to grow. It's only been episodic, and so there's probably a cause, like maybe there was a construction project which wasn't properly boomed. I just don't know, but it might be great to go back and figure that out and figure out what's happening there, and there'll be further adverse finds, and so that, for example, could be a great project that we all take on to understand exactly what's happening.
Just if I could interject a question, an educational question for everybody. When you reference poor grades, can you talk about who gives us those grades?
Yeah, so it's out of our hands, unfortunately, or fortunately, one of the two. The Unified Water Study is an EPA-approved protocol to sample the waters of harbors of Long Island Sound. So we signed up for that. voluntary. They train us, and they is Save the Sound, who has a manager of the study for the EPA, implements it. And so Save the Sound, is a nonprofit, and they certainly got their environmental hat on when they run around and give people grades. But it's done under EPA auspices, under a real scientific study, so that its findings are, considered valid, if you will. So we follow their exact rules about how to measure certain things like chlorophyll and oxygen levels and turbidity, for example. And then we submit all that data, and then Save the Sound grades us. They have two consultant scientists, marine scientists. One is Jamie Vaudry, she's the most, I think, active one, who's from the University of Connecticut. And I'm not sure if she's paid or not, but she's signed up under the study, again, under the EPA auspices. So this should be more than just giving it to a nonprofit, which might have a certain drum to beat at certain times. This is more scientific based and trying to get a long-term picture of the ecological health of the sound. And I think in any one given year, maybe our turbidity ratings that have been lousy for 2 years in a row, maybe that's a fluke. The point is to keep doing this study over a long period of time. And if we get a third year of turbidity ratings, I think we ought to pull the alarm and figure out exactly what's going on. And maybe we should do that for the past 2 years, which have been some bad ratings. Because I think the study is put together well and is fundamentally honest in its approach.
So Bill, how do we get an A+ on water quality and a D in turbidity?
Yeah, so there's like 6 elements to the overall report card. So like Darien Harbor got a C+, I believe. So it had some good grades and it had some bad grades. The turbidity was what dragged it down. Some of it may be beyond our control. The water temperature's rising, algae blooms come in, and that can detract from the grade, that can make more turbidity. But some of it may be in our control, such as stormwater runoff. We may not have enough buffers on our beaches for water flowing off our streets and parking lots into the harbors, giving more nutrients and causing algae blooms and more turbidity. I don't think I have an answer to that. I think it's going to be, for turbidity, I'm trying to figure out what may be bringing silt in, what may be bringing excess nutrients in. And I don't know if anything's going to be an easy fix or a short fix. And there's things out of our control like rising temperatures. And the more you have storms, the more you're going to have runoff and those problems exacerbating. So maybe there's some things that are just region-wide. We are graded next to our neighbors, so we get comparative. Stanford gets a grade and Norwalk gets a grade. And incidentally, they both did better in turbidity than Darien did. And I went back to their scientists and the Save the Sound people, and we dug through this a little. And it's interesting, the slot that is Darien, which is called an HUC zone, EPA zone, it has a higher impervious surface cover than the slot that is Norwalk and the slot that is Stanford. They're about 12% impervious surface, and our zone is 19%. So we just may be in more of a runoff area, and perhaps we should be doing more with buffers before waters go into the sound.
That's a good point. There was recently a study published in the Norwalk Hour, a heat study to show that part of Darien is an outlier in the region for overall rise in temperature over the years, which is very, sounds like it's very related to what you just reported.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I think I have that article. I'll send it to you.
I'd be curious.
Yeah.
Well, another item here would be number 6 is monitor harbor safety. I don't think we can do enough here, and I don't think we're proactive enough. And I don't know if you're all aware, but a man died in Cove Harbor on Saturday. This is right off of Chopin Point and just off the Woodway Beach Club. And 4, as I understand it, life guards tried valiantly to save him. But from, I think, the scant facts I've read, quickly, just one article, if all is accurate there, there were 2 people in a canoe. One didn't have a life preserver, and one made it to the beach, and the fellow thought the life preserver did not. And that was on a pretty warm water, nice Saturday afternoon. I was kayaking with the flotilla in that area literally just about an hour and a half before. And the year before in Stanford, there was a young man that died in April. And this was from a cold water exposure. He and his wife went out fishing in April, and the water's super cold. That's just like going out in the middle of winter, because the water hasn't warmed up yet, even though the sky might be. And he unfortunately died. So I don't think, we haven't had tragedies like that in Darien for some time. I think some bad events go back 10 or 15 years. But it's just ripe with all the kayaks and stand-up paddle boards that are on the beaches. Those have just exploded in the last 5 years. That hasn't stood still. That has all of a sudden come. So we made a strong point of, in the last 2 years, I don't know if you'd seen these, but getting Hadler safety tips on the town kayak racks. So these are on lots of the posts, and at the end of the racks are a little better explanation. I think this was a good idea, and all the guys helped put them at the various clubs. And it represented something proactive we did. I think we should be thinking of a lot more things. It's not something we should sit and wait for the accidents to happen. We should be thinking of how to get the Darien Power Squadron involved in more education. I don't know all the steps and things to do, but we should come up with more strategic plans that way and get your buy-in and try to enact those things. And then lastly, I just would mention as another proactive item here, on number 7, keep informed on current coastal activities. We do a lot of that. We try to bring in experts and try to learn what they're thinking on the environmental side or on the fire side. We've had the Renton Fire Department down talking about the fire boat and what they do, and the police boat, marine boat. We have the harbor master, Tom Bell, on our committee. He's been giving his woes through the last 12, 18 months with the pandemic about how the mooring list has just ballooned. It's doubled. How much of that is real? How many people have presented with the need to, or want to get a mooring tomorrow morning, would actually have a boat and act upon it? Who knows? But they have a right to put their name on the list, and probably a lot of them have good intent. But I think there might be more we could do to satisfy, as the Coastal Commission, one of our prime customers are residents who want a boat. And if you got to bring it down on a trailer every time you use it, along with your 2 kids and wife, that's just going to be too much burden to make it really a fun utility thing. So it would be nice to figure out how we can accommodate more people in the mooring field. I'm not sure how much the mooring field could be expanded or how much we want to do that, but we should think about it. I think there's a higher efficiency of usage in the mooring field that could be determined, like more density of boats when they're smaller in some sections. There may be also policies about putting some people farther out temporarily, and maybe they'd be happy with that if they could rotate, be the first ones to rotate in when an opening happens. These are all things to discuss with Tom Bell and Flip Hufford at the Norton Yacht Club, along with their new yard manager or mooring field manager, is talking to us about the mooring field. And I think that would be a responsive thing to do to our customer base, which is a lot of boaters. So my point in bringing these up, these would all be like forward-looking things we could devise some goals and plans about and attach to a document like the one I gave you here, which is more descriptive. And the long and the short of it is, I just think it would present a way that we could have more expectations between the Coastal Commission and the Board of Selectmen, and ultimately, hopefully, that should allow you to do what is your job, which is advising and assisting on those town charter elements that are in our resolution. So that was sort of the spiel I had, and I'm glad to answer any additional questions.
Thank you, Bill. I really like the idea, as an advisory committee to the Board of Selectmen. Each year is kind of a new year. You get reappointed every December, as you know. So to have fresh plans each year for activities and goals for the committee, I think is a great idea. And thank you. I want to thank you for coming to present that to the board, and I open it up for questions or comments about the advisory committee moving forward to draft a strategic plan for this year and then probably a couple years out, I would say.
Yeah, you could have some different time elements. You
Yeah.
could have a 3-year element and 1 and 2 year. However, what we'd recommend to you and what you'd agree to.
Comments, questions?
I like the idea of approaching the safety issue. We were talking about the unfortunate accident that apparently happened this weekend with the gentleman without the life jacket. I know different bodies of water are monitored every individual who's on the water, whether they're on a paddleboard or a kayak, all have to be wearing life jackets. Is that something that we do currently, and what could we do to help advocate for that personal
Well,
safety?
Well, the Darien Police Marine Unit, they're certainly aware of that. We've had them
Right.
in, and they've said that's one of the things they stop people with
Do they?
for the most. And I actually personally saw an example of that. I would guess a 35-year-old mother with a 1.5-year-old child on a stand-up paddleboard. It was in May. And she got on her paddleboard and went right out, and I was with one of the police officers, Marine police officers, and he just watched her go out with her son on the paddleboard. Nobody had a life preserver
Oh my
on.
God.
And May, the water is, 52, 54 degrees. A cold water shock can happen. You may go in and never take another breath. And he was, just
Floored.
disbelief, floored.
Yeah.
He said that happens all the time. They are constantly doing that. So they can't be everywhere. So that's an education thing.
And I'm wondering if that piece is something we can address, the
Yeah.
education.
I should think we should do more. I think, people aren't stupid. If they know the facts, but they don't. They don't understand water. They don't have enough experience.
It happens
And on a
quickly.
sunny day, everything about the water is
No, and it
just so
happens
easy.
quickly.
Yeah, and so then it turns really fast. So
Thank
I
you.
think there's a lot more we can do. So.
Thank you.
I have a question. How much do you interface with the 5 Mile River Commission on issues like this?
Yeah, just several times a year. So I've attended their meetings, and they haven't attended ours, but they've been very friendly. It's certainly separate. They handle their own affairs there, and it's carved out from our jurisdiction in our formation document.
Right.
Yeah, so.
The reason why I bring it up is a lot of people who, from Darien, own boats, and they keep them in the 5 Mile River. And it would be great to see a collaboration and the same diligence given to water safety in the 5 Mile River. So if we set an expectation in Darien through your committee, to share that information and the expectation that we hope that the 5 Mile River Commission is pushing for the same thing, I think would really be a benefit to the residents
I
of
agree.
Darien and Norwalk.
You've got a lot of boats over there. I agree
Yep.
that the synchronized would be great. I think they'd be more than welcome on that type of suggestion. They seem very open. So,
Okay.
yeah, that's great.
I have one last question. The channel depth survey, when is that done again?
I think it was done, I think we have 2 more years on it. I think it was done in September, October last year. I think I'm right on that. It's done every 3 years.
It's a 3-year,
Yeah,
okay.
and that one's a little troublesome in that generally the harbor has not shifted. Matter of fact, with some of the storms, it's scoured out a bit and actually gotten deeper. But there's a couple spots that have gotten shallow, like the end of the north side of the boat dock is a 3-foot spot at low tide that some of the boats have been hitting. And that's just like one 10-foot spot. And so how do you get a dredge in there just to
Yeah.
take care of that? So there's some troublesome points in that we think about. So.
So you just wait on that?
Yeah, we don't, well, we were wondering if the Pear Tree Point renovation goes through, if there might be a dredge brought in to handle the boat launch refurbishment that might take a little dirt away from there at the same time. So we stand waiting on that a bit. But
Okay.
it's not so troublesome at the moment that too many people are complaining about it, but it's getting there.
That's a good thought, though.
I'll just add a general comment. I like the idea of having a strategic plan, and you mentioned goals and objectives. What I wrote all over my presentation is action, meaning things like the turbidity issue. You mentioned the possibility of ascertaining what are possible causes for it. Quite frankly, I'm surprised that hasn't been done already. The action step portion, understanding that for most of the things, you'll have to come before the Board of Selectmen to get an action to go forward, but we rely on you guys as the experts to come to us and tell us, hey, we think that this is the cause, we think this is something that could be actionable, could we do this or that or the other thing? Those types of things I think would be really useful for the board as a whole. And One other thing that popped into my mind is, in recent years, we've had some issues where some issues with the sewer systems have affected water quality.
Mhm.
And so I would urge you to find some way to work in some cooperation, coordination, work directly with the sewer commission to make sure that anything that they are doing that could theoretically have an impact on water quality would get factored into your work.
All good
Because
points.
we all know the sad saga of that experience, and obviously we don't want anything like that to occur again. And I think if you're ahead of it in terms of anything that they're doing that might have an impact, that would probably be helpful.
I like your admonition to have more action focus, and, not offering a defense, but the volunteers, and it's hard to get enough time, but I'm right with you.
Completely understand, but to maximize the value of the commission, being able to have, even if they're just recommendations, right?
Yep,
Just
no, I totally
recommendations.
agree. I think there's a linkage that's missing, and I hope this would up it. Yeah, I agree with you.
That'd be great.
Just be sure if there's anything that you want to do that will cost money, it has to come to the town administrator before the end of the year and in the normal course of building the next budget.
So far, that's usually out of our radar, but it would be nice if that would creep in more often, because I think some of the things that would spin off of a more activist approach would start to.
Would have a little bit of cost. I mean,
Might
it
have
may
cost.
require some money to, for instance, to ascertain the causes of turbidity in the recent studies. It may actually require you to spend some money to figure that out, right?
Yep, yep. We did on the turbidity, by the way, try to get the sort of estimates of some of the coastal environmental consultants in the area. And that sort of led nowhere. The pandemic sort of frittered it away as people went to their corners, but we should probably reinvigorate that. So.
And the hardest question of the night for those of us that are boater wannabes, when you refer to Darien Harbor, exactly which portion of
If fair, some people call it Norotan Harbor, and so this would be like a Norotan Yacht Club, what's right in front of it, and what's right
Okay.
in front of Pear-Tree Point Beach.
So the Pear-Tree Point Beach, the mooring fields, the
Yeah,
cut,
where there's the most
the
boats.
cut
Yep,
and
the
everything
gut,
that
yep.
runs out there.
Exactly.
And it doesn't spill over into the adjacent sort of Scotts Cove.
No, so that, yeah,
Silver
so the,
Sound area.
yeah, so the Scotts Cove, Ziegler Cove, Fish Island area, I sort of
Yeah.
call another harbor area.
Okay, great, thanks.
But there's, in our charter, there's a formal definition of, I think we have 5 formal harbors. And I think Fish Islands are classified as their own harbor. It's sort of a funny
Definition, yeah.
nomenclature, but taxonomy. But then Scott Cove, and then Darien, and then Cove. So there's also Holly Pond, which the harbor master has a special dispensation to take care of also.
Well, this has been really informative. Thank you, Bill, for
Great.
coming.
Thank you.
Appreciate
Thanks for
it.
your attention.
Okay. Okay. I don't see Ed, so.
Yeah, we failed to send him the agenda, so I think when we had
Oh.
talked about it, it was some time ago, so it was on our phone.
Okay, Ed will be at our next meeting. Okay, we'll move on to the first selectmen's report. A little bit long tonight, sorry about that. So tropical cyclone Elsa hit Darien hard in the early morning hours of July 9th. Weather forecast the previous day did not give the town an accurate indication of the flash flooding that occurred between 7 a.m. and high tide at 11:45 a.m. Folks were already going about their typical morning business and encountered innumerable flooded roads, and homeowners and in commercial businesses flooded in flood vulnerable areas. Areas of town that have never flooded before did so on Friday, which is very interesting. Darien recorded 6.5 inches of rain in a 6-hour period, which we're told by Craig Flaherty designates a 50-year storm. 50-year storm means you have a 2% chance of a storm of that magnitude occurring in that particular year. I declared a local state of emergency to help facilitate emergency response and recovery efforts. Many cars that attempted to drive through flooded waters got stranded, and the need for people to be rescued out of cars was occurring all morning by Darien Police, and I'm sure Darien Fire Departments were also assisting with that. Our sanitary sewer system was inundated with groundwater, rainwater, and also from the illegal connections into the sanitary sewer system from home downspouts and sump pumps that should be connected only to the storm system, not the sanitary sewer. As a result, we experienced a number of sewage overflows to the point of the conversation we were just having, which exacerbated the flooding issues. If you are vulnerable to flooding, or your home and your plumbing fixtures are below the level of the sanitary sewer collection system in your road or by your home, you must install a backflow valve. We have an ordinance about that, we have a regulation about it, and you can save yourself a lot of headache and hard work to install a backflow valve. The Darien Public Works Department can give you more information about installing a backflow valve on your home's sanitary sewer collection system. We are working with the owners of several repetitive loss properties to navigate the FEMA flood insurance process. Friday's storm really underscores the critical importance of the work the town is doing currently to improve our sanitary sewer system. We understand this is a very serious and difficult problem that we're working aggressively to address. Friday's flooding rains also overwhelmed residential septic systems, adding to the sewage overflow problems. The State Department of Energy and Environmental Protection was in town today, speaking with several homeowners regarding their flood damage. Item number 2, I've submitted the pollinator pathway to be considered for an Aquarion Environmental Champions Award. Winners will receive a grant award of $2,500. I want to thank Juliet Kane and Deepika Saxena for their help with the application. We should hear in a couple weeks who the winners were. Sarah and Brent Hayes and Kate and I met and received a proposal from Noble House Media to assist us with a town-wide PR campaign to address speeding and pedestrian safety around town. Brent made the suggestion that the Police Commission may consider funding the campaign out of false alarm funds. Once we know and get the Police Commission input, we'll determine our next steps. The general idea is to use all forms of media outreach, social, print, direct mail, whole host of other things, for a 1-month period annually to begin to shift driving behaviors to be more pedestrian and bicyclist centric. The RTM's request for funding to have MuniCode degender the town charter will be paid for from the town attorney's legal budget. So that request will not be coming to the Board of Selectmen or Board of Finance at this time. Wayne Fox has ordered the work. It will take 60 days for MuniCode to complete the review, after which the suggested edits come back to the RTM for review and a public hearing. The chairman of TGSNA believes this could be on a January 2022 agenda if all goes smoothly. And finally, a brief COVID update for everybody. We've had only 11 positive cases reported since May 1st. Darien Health Department has not received any information or guidance relating specifically to the Delta variant. The state's positivity rate stands at 0.61%. The Darien Health Department is issuing updated reports on a monthly basis now, given the low incidence of positive cases. As of July 1, 73% of all eligible Darien residents have received at least 1 dose of vaccine. Darien's positivity rate is 0.1%. On Friday, July 9th, the CDC issued new guidance saying that vaccinated students do not need to wear masks in school this fall unless they're riding on a bus or the local school district requires masks to be worn by all students. The CDC also recommends 3 feet of distancing for unvaccinated children. We will await the Board of Education and district's decision on what the rules will be for school reopening. That's it for me.
The first selectman and I met with representatives from Karma, which is our insurance company, at Highland Farms last week. And Jim Coughlin and Jim Flynn from Parks and Rec were also present. We reviewed what the town was doing to ensure that people visiting the property knew the rules of use and abided by them, so as to avoid risk to our neighbors at Ox Ridge. We were informed by them that we informed them that we're planning to plant additional trees along the fence line in coordination with Ox Ridge. They felt we were doing the right things, but they gave us some suggestions for things we could do that go above and beyond what we're doing currently. And so we're exploring those options, and we're going to continue to take reasonable steps to ensure the safety of the visitors to the property and our neighbors. Continuing with Highland Farms, our landscape consultant will be meeting with abutting property owners this week to review final plans. We are scheduling a public information meeting that will be virtual for the 21st, so that any member of the public can see what the final plans are. And then we hope to proceed with bid specs and getting it out to bid and planting this fall.
That's July 21st.
July 21st, yes.
Thanks, Kate. Any selectmen updates for this evening?
Not tonight.
Not tonight? Sarah?
I have one thought.
Sure.
I wanted to run it by the board. I spoke with the library, and they send out an email blast on Fridays. And so I asked them if they would be interested in us submitting a list of current openings on commissions and advisory panels. And they said they would, so if that's okay with everyone. Go ahead.
Sure.
More
Any and
PR
all
for
communication.
More PR, the better. Volunteers are always in short supply.
Absolutely.
Good. That's great. So you can work with Linda in the selectman's office, and she can provide that. Or we can set up a protocol where that gets sent over to the library on a Thursday.
Great. Yeah, she's looking for a link, so great.
Okay, perfect. Okay, public comment. We have some public here tonight. Anybody for public comment, please come forward and give us your name and address, please.
Good evening. My name is Natalie Tallis. I live at 12 Little Brook Road North in Darien. I know some of you. I've gotten to work with Jamie recently. I am here to discuss Eversource's proposal to remove trees along Little Brook Road, Selleck's Woods, Dunlap Woods, and also Connecticut DOT property, which, as you all know, has a very different jurisdiction than the other areas. I'm here because we need your help. Jamie's already met with Eversource several times, but I'm hoping to engage the entire board in our current discussions with Eversource. In case you're not familiar, starting May 18th, Eversource came in and tagged 50 trees for removal along Little Brook Road, which is a short, I think, end to end, it's under half a mile. They've since tagged a total, now we have 63 trees tagged for removal and another 20 for pruning. We're waiting to hear about additional trees that they want to remove, both in Selleck and Dunlap Woods, but also, and they've already begun work on the Connecticut DOT property due to an emergency authorization on June 23rd. And I've actually written to see if we could get a list of which of those trees have come down and the total number. I'm hoping Eversource agreed to do a survey of the area. They were a little unclear about property lines. So they were on Little Brook Road the other day, and my understanding was they were also back on DOT property and are also supposed to be going into the nature preserve. So I'm hoping once they have the property lines in the different jurisdictions, that we'll be able to get the full plan and the full extent of how many trees they actually want to remove, how many they want to prune, and their efforts there. Just also to be clear, this isn't, right now there's been a lot of attention on Little Brook Road and the abutting properties, but Eversource, due to frequency of storms and some pressure that they've received from state officials, have changed their tree removal versus pruning policy. And they've decided that pruning or trimming, whatever you want to call it, really isn't sustainable. So particularly under transmission lines, which is what we have on Little Brook, they really just want to remove them. Obviously, this would have enormous consequences, many unintended for the community. So we are hoping, we're thanks to Jamie, who's had several meetings with them, we are working to establish some sort of restoration plan, a meaningful restoration plan that will both provide a safe and reliable electric grid, as well as substituting or replacing some of the natural capital that will disappear if these trees are removed. So as climate change has made severe storms more common, it's really now up to all of us to figure out what's best for the electric grid, the community, and the planet. Deforestation activity worldwide is a recognized factor contributing to human-caused climate change. And it's not an exaggeration that to say without a solid and thorough plan to remediate the area and proposed maintenance removal of trees along the Little Brook Road corridor and the Nature Preserve and Connecticut DOT, there'll be an immediate and devastating impact on the microenvironments in that area, but also through the entire town. So as a spokesperson for the neighborhood and parts of Raymond and Little Brook Road North, we ask, and we already have Jamie's help in helping figure out what needs to be a town-wide solution to Eversource's needs to keep the electric grid safe, but also for us to keep our trees. And that's all.
Thank you, Natalie.
Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Hi, I'm Marie Morgan, and this is my daughter Pippa, and we also live on Little Brook Road North. And I too am exhausted from cleaning out my basement and lost everything inside of it, our garage as well. So we moved to Little Brook Road North because of the environment. It is a stunning area. So it is a short little street, but it leads right into Selleck's Woods. And you can just look up the road, and it's a beautiful canopy of trees, and all around you is just the sounds of birds, and there's butterflies, and it's just this amazing area of land, and it has a mix of wetlands, and there's a brook that goes through it. And we do have one section which Eversource did cut the trees leading. And I was walking one day with an arborist, and it happened to have been one of those rare, really hot days, but normally in Darien in the summers, we have a lot of really hot days. And we started near Selleck Woods, and it was shady, and you could hear the birds, and it was still warm, but as long as you stood in the shade, it was manageable. We walked up the street to that section where they cut, and all you could hear was the train that went by. There was not a single bird to be heard at all. And it was so hot that, like, all of us, we couldn't even remain in the area very long. And so it just showed you that in just that 5-minute walk or 2-minute walk up the road, the change in temperature was so drastic. The change in just the wildlife was so drastic. So this is a corridor where you see deer, and there's foxes, and there's fisher cats, and we have a bobcat that runs through it. So this is sort of how they get between their feeding grounds of off of Raymond, Chasmers Pond area into Selleck. So it's a real amazing piece of just nature of Darien, of why people come to Darien, and it's a road that a lot of people drive along to go to Selleck Woods. And right now, as it stands, it sounds like they want to cut all of the trees. And there's so many reasons to be concerned about that. But another big concern for me is we have a lot of kids that ride their bikes on our street. Mm-hmm. And if you look out, if you're going to suddenly see train tracks, I just worry about that too. In addition to all the environment, I worry that kids will see something even more dangerous and be like, oh, we could go, right now you wouldn't know. I mean, you know the trains go by, but just being a young kid and knowing how kids are like that, just having that instant vision of something could also draw someone. So I love that I don't really worry as much, because you're not looking out at tracks. So I was really hoping that, and I will say, I just, with everything that's going on, even tonight, all these issues, I also teach stand-up paddleboard yoga, so all these issues that have come up, I'm this affects me, so I know you guys all have had an amazing year of just so much. So for Jamie to have come out so much and to, yes, I can't thank you enough, because this should be a little issue in everything that you've had going on. It's huge to me, but it just really says a lot that you're willing to listen to all this. So I thank you so much for that. But I would like to just go through and say, like, well, here in the wetlands, is there a tree? There's this beautiful 100-year-old oak. Maybe that could be saved. Maybe, like, are there some that we can really walk through and say, some of these could be saved? And then my other concern is in the area where they have cut trees, it has become completely overgrown with Japanese knotwood, which is an invasive, and then another tree that's also an invasive that will eventually grow over this 25-foot range that they're saying they're trying to stop. So if we don't abate those issues, there's still going to be other plants that take over and go beyond that 25-foot or 15-foot height that they're talking about, of why they're saying we can't have these trees. So I'm a little confused why certain trees that maybe aren't going to be as beneficial to the wildlife that's currently there are allowed to stay in the form of an invasive, but yet they're saying we're cutting everything down. So I'm kind of confused on that, and I just was hoping for additional support in getting a planting plan in place that really, really looks at just the wetlands area and that change in environment of what will happen.
Yeah, that would be very wonderful, the board. There has been so many thunderstorms lately, and I feel like it's because there's so many trees being cut down, and it's not fair to my community because we're just there and there's like people just cutting down, and it's like, why are you cutting down? That's life. You're like wasting your time cutting down trees that shouldn't be cut it down. It's hard because we're fighting really, really hard, and they're pushing our buttons, and it's not fair.
Well, we really appreciate your input. Thank you so much for coming tonight to share your thoughts.
Thank you for your time. Thank you.
bet. Thanks, Pippa.
Hi guys, my name's Kent Morgan. I also live at 17 Willowbrook Road North. I also just wanted to point out, when I hear the word sustainability spoken by Eversource, based on and having them change their policy that has been working just fine for 40 years, and then I look up to find that their profit last year was $1.2 billion. I don't know if it's really the sustainability or if it's their profit margins that they're worried about so much. I understand it costs money to go out and trim trees, and maybe it's cost less money in the next, 5 or 10 years to just cut them all down right now. But it will have a negative economic impact on those of us neighbors who live on the street. It will devalue the values of the home, something which Darien is also known for and counts on in terms of bringing in people to buy taxes and pay their buy houses and pay their taxes. So I just I appreciate the support we've gotten so far, and I guess I'd ask for your continued support, because when it becomes a difference between a remediation plan that they propose, which is maybe some grasses or plants that will eventually in 20 years get to 15 feet, or plantings that may be 3 years old and will get to 15 feet in 3 years. To the degree that we can all be unified in our desire to get to a desired state as quickly as possible, even though it might put a little ding. They mentioned that if they kept trimming the trees, they would have to raise our rates. They didn't say that if they kept trimming the trees, they might not make $1.2 billion in profit each year. Maybe it would be $1.1 billion. And so I think there's a little bit of a wiggle room that might exist, and to the degree that you guys, who are far more in a better position in terms of supporting this discussion and sort of providing a unified front for the town, we're just, we're David, we're not their Goliath. And we count on you guys to help us in that regard. And so to the degree that you can, we appreciate your support. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Any other public comment? Kate, did we receive any public comment? this evening?
The only thing we received was the letter from Ms. Tallis that I
Great.
emailed out to you this afternoon.
Okay, perfect. Thank you all. Okay, we'll move on to new business. First order of business is to discuss a policy for remote participation for the Board of Selectmen at our meetings.
That's for the next item.
Oh, next item, okay, great. So, the backdrop on this is that we have each and every board and commission, not the town as a whole, we can't set a policy for the entire town, but each and every board and commission has to make a decision about how they wish to operate their meetings, whether it's in, all in person, remote, or hybrid. And there are parameters that go with remote and hybrid access for meetings. So this is to just take the pulse of the Board of Selectmen on what how you think we should be meeting going forward in terms of, the five of us. And Kate listed a bunch of questions here to help guide us in our discussion, but I think I'd like to maybe first open it up to everybody to hear your thoughts on whether you'd like to see us have a remote or hybrid option for a meeting as a board of selectmen.
I think we should have an ability to be here hybrid. One of the questions that I have though is, to be very effective, it would be helpful to have some kind of screen. The audio-visual requirements to allow, clearly there's been discussion, but I think it's very important, given especially particularly the size of this board, if there is one member that is remote, and I think it's important for that member to be seen. Visual cues, but also this is, a public meeting. I know there is some ability when we are on Zoom for, TV79 to be able to have us all. Is there an ability to have that remote person in for the public to see if TV79 is?
So we haven't worked out all of the logistics, but TV79, Jim Cameron in
Yeah.
particular, pursued a grant with the Area 9 Cable Council to provide 2 screens in this room. And we've recently gotten a quote on the wiring, so the town will pick up the cost of the wiring. So what we're talking about doing is there'd be a screen kind of about like behind Monica,
Yep.
There, and another screen where the podium is on that wall there. We don't have nailed down the technical aspects of like what would we show on one, what would we show on the other.
Right.
Because, we recognizing that you would have to show if you were not present at a meeting, we'd want you to be visible to the audience, to your
Correct.
fellow board members. What if we have members of the public who wish to speak, and how that will all work, but we are working on it. And I think, one thing that we would need to think about going further with this is beyond this room, what else do we do? But, it's come up, and want to thank Jim for leading.
100%. I think this room might be the best place to aim those efforts. It's big enough, there's enough cameras, it might visually allow. I think everybody moving forward, whether it's in corporate, nonprofit, and government, we're going to be talking about these issues, whether they're going to be in person and hybrid, and I think allowing this hybrid option would allow somebody's away on vacation, or something's happened, you're sick, or whatever it is, to allow members to be able to participate. So I think we should definitely move in that direction. The questions that you've asked are really good. And I think we need to talk about, how many meetings, is there a limit? We want to allow someone to participate for sure.
I looked around and I couldn't find anything from any other town. Greenwich, New Canaan, Madison. I don't know why no one else has weighed in on this yet. Is there?
It's brand new, I think.
They're all doing the same thing we are.
Yeah.
They're discussing it.
Okay.
We had actually, some time ago, it came up with the Board of Finance, and Wayne and I were discussing it before while we were all in executive session. And there was a vote taken, and he thinks it was the RTM. I thought it was the Board of Finance.
Was
But
the
it
Board of
was definitely, it was about a Board of Finance member, and they chose not to allow remote participation. That was actually, before the days of Zoom and stuff, it would have been just by telephone, but they chose not to allow it specifically. I
That's our
think you
town.
had a colleague who said that she had participated in her meetings in another town, so it's here and there.
Yeah.
I believe that the FOI Commission has ruled on remote participation.
Yes.
That you have to allow remote participation for board members.
No, you can allow it. It has to be in accordance with your board policies. And if you do allow it, the board member has to be identifiable to the public. But you're not required to allow it.
And refresh for us the understanding that if we allow remote meetings and we decide that we're all going to be remote, we have to provide public access to attend the meeting, and including access to the technology to attend
Yeah.
the meeting. So we'd have to have a place here in town hall set up for the public.
Right, so I guess there's two kind of different things. One is in a pre-COVID or post-COVID world, if you want to allow remote participation. With the COVID world, until April of 2022, we're obligated, we are allowed to continue to have hybrid meetings. If we choose to have a hybrid meeting, we have to, if a member of the public asks for accommodations to allow them to participate in the virtual meeting, we have to provide them with the means to do so. So, I guess if they don't have their own computer hookup, we would have to provide them a place where they could hook in and participate. What I'm not sure about that, is TV 79 and providing them with access to the video feed. Would that be sufficient?
I don't believe so, because they can't participate. They'd only be a viewer.
But you're not obligated to allow them to participate in a meeting normally. If the Board of Selectmen did not choose to have public comments, there's no legal obligation to allow public comment. So, yes, if you're having public comments, you have to allow them that. The other thing that you have to do in that regard is, if we're going to have a hybrid meeting, and for some reason you three are all participating from the library, and Jamie and Sarah are at their homes, we have to allow the public the opportunity to be at the library to meet in the same place you are.
Where the majority of the members are.
No,
Oh.
anytime, it doesn't matter how many, if even two members congregate at the same place to participate in the hybrid meeting, you have to allow the public to be in that place. Which, one of the rules right from the start was, if we were having a virtual meeting, as long as anybody was in person, you had to allow the public and the press the opportunity to meet in the same place that the in-person. It's complicated.
I think there are a lot of interesting questions. I am concerned about remote participation in executive session, because you can't guarantee that there are not others, listening in to that executive session. So, we've raised that issue at the state level with WestCog, people that are really trying to sort through these new rules. And we also have come up against recently an inquiry about remote participation allowance for somebody that is going to be moving out of Connecticut for 10 months out of the year, that sits on a commission. And, they want the person to still participate in the work of the commission. And, so I agree that I think hybrid and remote participation is here to stay in one form or another. But I think it has to come with some guide rails.
I would agree.
I don't think it serves the public well to have someone who
Can never attend.
isn't in town physically interacting with their constituents to continue to set policy for the town. To me, that it doesn't seem right. So there might not be a legal basis for that necessarily, unless of course they've changed their their residency, but we know many people that, Darien is so many people go away for the summer. And you could see how many boards and commissions would be impacted by people traveling and participating for 2 or 3 months in a row virtually. So, that is this board. We only get to decide about what we do for this board, thankfully.
May I ask if there was an attendance policy, if there was a particular board member that maybe either for whatever reason was traveling personal or for work or sickness, if you had someone who didn't attend a certain number of times, was there something triggered?
There's no rule.
There's no rule.
No.
Got it.
No, there's nothing in the charter about that either.
For any of the boards, right?
Well, on the
Yeah.
RTM,
Is there? Okay.
there's no rule, but your committee assignment will be dependent on your attendance. That's a factor, so.
Interesting.
And I think, we've done pre-COVID and we've had summers and we've had people leave. But, summer's 3 months, so,
And the RTM breaks for the summer.
yeah, they
Right,
don't, yeah, they
but-
don't meet in
but
July
we
and
don't,
August.
yeah.
Right.
So Kate, we could set up, it doesn't sound like we're gonna figure this out tonight, but we could set up something where if there was no executive meeting, then that could be a hybrid potential meeting, correct?
Or you
We
could
wouldn't
have,
we
you could
wouldn't
have a
to
hybrid
go-
meeting where, if one member was going to be remote and the other 4 are present, you could make the decision that remotely you're not allowed to participate in the executive session.
Okay,
And I think you could,
Unless all members are remote, as we did over the past year.
yeah.
Yeah.
and we could have some remote and some in-person meetings. We don't have to choose one or the other, right?
Well, I think that the option here, what we're talking about more is that your basic meeting would continue to be in person.
Okay.
But when a member is traveling or when a member is ill, could they participate remotely?
Okay.
I think the difficulty right now is if you had a meeting and somebody was participating virtually, no one would be able to see the individual. No one on this board.
The board would, because we could set it up where the board could, I think the difficulty would be how do you get them so that the public can?
Right,
Correct.
but
And
right
does
now,
that mean
we
that the
don't-
public, we set up a GoToMeeting and the public also has access to that, but, we've got public sitting out here.
Well, of
Are they
course.
gonna all have to bring their laptops with them to see,
So I attended a Board of Ed meeting where the public was remote and some of their presenters were remote. And they set up this thing in the middle of the room with 4 TV monitors on the floor so that everybody around the board table and in the room could see the virtual participants. So, in theory, everybody here at the dais could have our iPads out and there could be a GoToMeeting. And we could be logged into the GoToMeeting
Mhm.
and there could be on the monitors that are planned here,
right.
The remote participants.
simulcasting the GoToMeeting, right?
Right.
So,
I think that's something to strive towards.
my preference is always in person.
Right.
I think we were all kind of eager to get back to in-person. We did remote for a long time, but would love to hear from Chip and David.
My feeling is technology is here to stay. Don't fight it. And our building committee meetings right now have all been virtual. We've been open to the public. If anybody wants to comment, they're given an invitation to go to meeting. We've had people on. They haven't usually commented, but they've listened in. They can always see the video usually Jim has it on the air within 45 minutes when our meeting's over. So they can see the whole thing live video. I'm a believer in technology. I believe that we're gonna see when the commuting world begins again, we're gonna see hybrids there. Why fight it? I don't believe that you have to make a distinction between executive sessions and regular sessions in terms of people's presence, other than the security issue. You have a point there, Jamie. If you can't keep it secure, then you can't do it. But if you can find a way to do it, keeping it secure, I would see no reason why you can't do that remotely as well. And I just think you ought to play with it and see how it goes. and to the degree that the public has to be involved, they can either be in here or if you have it remotely. We've had that before, haven't we? They've all had a chance to be there. I'm pretty much open to this. And I don't, the less restrictions to me you have, the better off you're gonna be. And you can, as you go along, you can narrow them down. I mean, Jamie's point about executive committee, if you can't make that secure, you can't have it remote. You can't have a person be remote
Yeah.
executive committee. That's just my point of view.
David, thoughts?
Well, I think Kip is spot on. Technology is here to stay. The world of Zoom and GoToMeeting and such things have changed the world in which we're going to live going forward, right? That technology ramped dramatically in the past year. And there should be a way to get the technology to work to meet whatever rules are necessary. I'm confident that Jim, Cameron, and folks can figure that out for us, and we'll rely on them to do that. I think there's a dynamic to an in-person meeting that is hard to capture in the Zoom environment. I certainly don't believe that it's in the spirit of the charter that people, you know, that people would only participate remotely. So having some, you know, minimum percentage of physical participation makes sense for something. I'm sort of going through Kate's questions because I thought they were quite good.
Mhm.
When it comes down to approving the town budget, I kind of feel like people should be here.
Joe, you mean?
You know, it's perhaps the biggest decision that the board makes to put forward. So, and it affects every citizen in town. So that seems like that would make some sense. And right now, as it sits now, we would not be able to hold a complete meeting unless we had a quorum physically present. So I'm not sure that we should change that either.
I really love how remote participation has engaged the community.
Mhm.
I think we had a lot of people interested in local government, and that's a really good thing.
I think that's helped
Yeah.
engage, allow more people to participate, and I think
Yeah.
that aspect is very good.
I think so too. So Kate, I think part of it is really finding sort of the right virtual platform, that just thinking logistically about how the meetings go. You know, if you end up with a Board of Selectmen meeting where we have a lot of public, it becomes, I know this was a discussion, I think, in several meetings, it becomes difficult to have the board wants to highlight themselves, and then when people want to make public comment, that they can come on to the meeting with their cameras. I will note that the Board of Education has one individual that facilitates their meetings from a technology perspective. You know, they don't have, Kate's equivalent doesn't do that for the Board of Education.
Correct.
They have a
Yeah.
special person that comes in to do that, so.
I was gonna say that if you go to
With
regularly
content.
having some form of remote participation, we need to have an individual separate from me to run that. And Monica can attest to what it was like running the RTM meetings virtually, because she was often sending me, you know, reminders and notes and saying what she was seeing, so that, you know, those of us who were controlling the software could do things. You know, we had, you know, sometimes 4 or 5 people in the scenes behind helping us. It's not an
Right.
easy thing to do. You know, when it's just the 5 of you on a GoToMeeting, that's not so bad.
No, 100 people is a different story.
Yeah, well, but even to be here physically and try and manage somebody who's on a screen, multiple members of the public on a screen, that will be, I don't think, feasible. You know, maybe expanding our TV 79 crew in some way.
So to finish out the last 2 questions on this sheet that you asked, Kate, should the board rules require that any member participating virtually be visible on screen to the other board members and/or the public?
I think Sarah
I
already
would say
answered that.
I would say yes. I think your camera
Yeah.
should be on,
The-
unless you have a technical issue.
Yeah, I mean, the very first sentences sort of deal with that, right? Under the FOIA rules, the board members may participate in a virtual meeting, however, the public must be able to identify the members.
Yep.
I think technically, I think if you were on a phone, anytime you were going to speak, you would have to say, this is David Martin,
Yeah.
and then speak. So I
Okay,
think that would satisfy the FOI regulation.
okay.
Your face on the screen is much better.
I would
Yeah.
agree with that.
You know, it's, you know, it has to do more than just, you know, like you talked about the spirit of the meeting when you're in person. When you're just a voice, nobody's seeing any of the physical cues.
Right,
So,
right.
And the last question, how would you handle voting for members attending virtually? I don't really have a problem with regular meeting votes virtually. I might have a problem with an executive session. I value the input of a board member if they're participating remotely in executive session, so I don't know if there's an issue that comes up that's really an executive session issue, if you should vote on that if you're not here in person, but I'm open to further dialogue about that.
Well, you don't vote in executive session, do you?
right.
Right.
Okay.
But, you know, are you talking about like if you miss the executive session?
Should you abstain?
Should you
from the vote?
abstain from the vote
Yeah.
that's taken based on something that was discussed in executive session?
Yes, I would agree with that, yeah. All right, so we'll try and refine what we heard this evening and move forward with some kind of policy to allow for remote and hybrid meetings. Thank you. Okay, next action item, new business, discuss and take action on a proposed settlement of a lawsuit. We have, would you pass those please, Monica? We have a suggested motion here. The motion reads, the Darien Board of Selectmen hereby approves the settlement of the case of Peter Kenog versus the Town of Darien to amend the fair market value of the property to $4,400,000 from $4,790,900 effective with the grand list of October 1st, 2019 in accordance with the stipulation for judgment. I'll entertain a motion to approve that settlement.
So moved?
Kip moves, may I have a second?
So,
Sarah seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Great, okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just looking to see.
Do you want to skip down to?
I do.
I was gonna,
Yeah.
yeah.
I think
I was
we're
just
gonna move
gonna
on
say-
to transfers, but,
We've got two drill tower and the.
yeah, with the permission of the board, I'd like to move directly to transfer number 9, discuss and take action on a request to transfer $1,400,000 to the Norotan Heights Fire Department ladder truck replacement fiscal year 22 capital. Do I need a motion to amend the agenda, or is it under the transfer? We can just,
As long as the
shuffle
rest of the
around.
board is okay with it, you don't need it.
okay, perfect, great, so we can accommodate our very patient guests here this evening. How are you, Zach?
Good, how are you?
Good, thank you.
Good evening. My name is Zach McEwen. I'm the chief of the Norotan Heights Fire Department, and can I answer any of your questions?
Can you just walk us through the process from tonight forward? Who's involved in speccing out the truck? And I know there's been some discussion at the Board of Finance level about setting a committee to, like we do a building committee for capital
Sure.
building projects. So could you just walk us through where we go from tonight forward?
So from tonight forward, if we pass through, obviously we still have to go through Board of Finance. But as far as the background, before we got here tonight, this process started a long time ago for us. Even before I was chief, we were sitting down in committee meetings, and that committee is established by our president. And the people that get to serve on those are people with experience, people that know the needs of the department and the town, that have proven themselves to, be an asset on that committee. So as far as where we go from here, is Board of Finance. And
So the truck is already spec'd out.
so the specs that our department has proposed have gone to the town administrator for the touch-ups, the legal language and such. Just one thing to back up, I know that we said 1.4, that was amended. I
Yeah,
wasn't
it's
sure.
1.3.
Yeah, sorry, I see that on.
There was a clerical error on my part.
Okay.
Okay.
Apologize for any
Questions?
confusion that might have posed.
So the number is 1.301?
Correct.
Yeah, okay. Okay, so I guess my comments relate to perhaps a different process going forward. I think that's what was discussed at the Board of Finance level.
So we already have a different process right now with the budget. The Board of Finance this year closed out a number of the reserves. And the process that they are following with the fire trucks going forward is each time a department wants a truck, they have to come forward and we'll transfer funds out of the Board of Finance reserve into a specific account for that vehicle. So right now, the request before you is 1.3 million. If after bidding, the trucks come in, comes in at 1.4, they actually have to come back and request the additional $100,000. In the past, that didn't happen. This will allow us to track each truck and their cost individually, and to follow a good process.
So I think what I'd like to propose, not for tonight, why don't we just settle the discussion on this transfer first, and then we can expand the conversation. Is there any, Kip?
Couple of quick questions. What's the current height of the ladder truck you have? 75?
11'2".
Pardon?
Oh, I'm sorry, the actual ladder on the
Yeah.
truck.
No, this one, the new one's gonna be 75-foot aerial device.
Correct.
What's your
So,
existing one?
just a background of aerial trucks in this town, Darien has a tower ladder. Norotan has a mid-mount straight stick ladder. What we find for our district, and that works in conjunction with the two other aerial devices in town, is our 75-foot rear mount aerial device. And this truck is one that has a pump on it. So as you see in there, we're not veering too far from what we have now. And that's because it's worked. And it's worked since the refurb in 2000. And it's a truck that works differently from the others. But they all work together to make the same objective.
This is much more of a multi-purpose truck than the other two ladders,
Yeah.
correct?
Okay. No,
It
that's
will
fine.
have hose.
Yes, it will
And
have
it'll have
hose
pump.
and other technical rescue things that you'll find on a ladder truck, but primarily, they refer to it as a quint, and so it has the aerial on top and it has the pump of an engine. So you get kind of best of both worlds. This is a truck designed for the tight driveways, tiny wood and all wood up there. Like, it's hard to get a big ladder truck in there.
Right.
When you need, the houses are big, you have to be able to get a truck that fits the needs of our district, not only up north, but, Heights Road is growing every day as we see it.
Yeah.
So this is definitely a truck that we're looking to outfit for the future.
There was a comment at the bottom line, says that you had additional meetings to determine the specifications for the next truck and its ability to meet our community's ever-evolving needs. Can you just give me a feeling, what are those evolving needs that you discovered?
So these, the evolving needs is our district's changing. Like I was just mentioning, is Heights Road is changing. I've heard some changes that are going to happen to Edgerton, where the old senior center was. We're expecting changes all over, and what those changes are on Edgerton, I'm not quite certain.
Nothing built.
Nothing
So
built.
don't worry.
So that's good.
Nothing you
Nothing
need
to
a
catch
ladder
fire.
for.
Okay, there's still brush. So the ever-evolving needs, the houses are, when I grew up, the houses seemed smaller. Granted, I was smaller, but the houses that are older, they're getting knocked down and they're getting built into bigger houses. That's, keeping with that truck that has the ladder and has the pump on it, that's meeting our community's needs because it's the best of both worlds. And keeping it small with the conjunction of the other aerial trucks in town, we're gonna have the best of both worlds here.
Okay.
So I hope that answered your question.
Appreciate it, thank you.
Sorry.
No, please go ahead.
I'm wondering about all of the new commercial developments. Now, I know that they're going to have sprinkler systems and fire suppression amenities in those buildings, but do we have what we need to handle a large-scale fire in the federal project or Baywater when it's built, a 5-story, 4-story.
So you raise a really good point. Part of these, changes that we're seeing in these bigger buildings, take Parklands Drive, for example.
Right.
We have to carry hose on the truck to be able to carry inside of a building. With those sprinkler systems, there's piping in those buildings that our trucks can pump and we have to hook into. So that changes with, layouts and carrying other equipment and such, so we can hook into those pipes and, this truck we're proposing to replace is 33 years old. And I hope that the next truck can serve this town for 33 years. And that's been a goal of this committee the entire time. After we identified that it, could we refurbish it again? No. Why we're going this direction. And yes, we have what we need with, the current schedule we have outlined for replacements and such. We keep, every time we have a meeting like this to propose changes and we do our budgets, we're always going to the next level and making sure that we have what we need for the future.
Thank you. Sarah?
The two questions I had, one is 75 foot high enough to reach a 4-story, a 5-story building?
So 4-story, 5-story, you can, you're parking basically on top of the building at that point. 5 stories, I'm gonna say no. I mean, at that point, you're gonna be relying on the 100-foot, from Norotan, and on top of that, you might have different objectives. When you have a building fire in a 5-story building, the plans kind of change on your attack.
Of course, yeah.
Where, the 75 that's proposed that our committee has come up with, I want people to remember our district is northwestern part of Darien, and a lot of that is residential. We have some schools, which are all perfect for the 785. Where if you look at Norotan's district's a little different. They're right on the post road. There's a lot of commercial. It's granted, there's a lot of residential too, but they have setbacks. So where our truck is meant for driveways, it's short, it's compact, it has the pump, it has the aerial device. Norotan's truck may be parked on a street, may have that setback for reaching, a 3-story house. So it's good.
Okay.
Yep.
Thank you. And the other question is, this is not a new request. This is something that's been in discussion for quite a long time, correct?
Not by us, by them.
By them, but
It's
that
been
was,
it's been in the
In the
vehicle
plan.
replacement plan.
Yes,
Yeah.
okay.
And it was part of the 2013 Almont study as well.
Got it, thank you.
I have a question. You might not be able to answer this, but the old truck, is the budget for the new truck, does that include the trade-in allowance on the old truck?
So with our old truck, so no. I'm sorry, would you mind just asking one more time? I had trouble hearing the last part.
I'm trying to figure out, for this budget, for this 1.3, are you including any kind of trade-in allowance on the old truck?
So we don't have any offers on it. For a 33-year-old Mack fire truck, you can find prices from $1,000 to $20,000. We just don't know until we move forward. I mean, the new truck could take well over a year to come. So we don't know where we're gonna be at as far as, who's looking to buy a 33-year-old truck that's been cut in pieces and put back together before. I mean, before this, it was a different truck. In 2000, it was refurbished.
Zach, it's not typical to trade in the fire trucks, is it?
So
we might sell them, we have sold them in the past, but you typically would not trade in the truck to the dealer when
it depends on who wins the bid and if they're open to that idea. But we just don't have enough information at this point to.
Sounds like parts.
Yeah, it's not something I've seen done, but we have on occasion sold a truck. And we've also donated them to smaller fire departments.
And then you sort of touched on my second question, which is the timing for the new truck.
So with the specifications and with any purchase of this stature being a truck customized to our district and, even if it was less customized for what our needs are, it takes a lot of time. It's a lot of materials and there's a lot of people in front of us in line to be getting their fire trucks. I'd like to see it in, a year.
Okay.
If it's gonna take a little bit longer than that, it's
Okay,
gonna take the time it needs, so.
okay, thanks.
So I'll go back to my original train of thought, and that is, the only visibility we really have into fire apparatus is the apparatus replacement schedule, which you guys are great. Townwide, you're great about looking at apparatus, refurbishing when you can, and we really appreciate that. And then, of course, we literally see you during the Memorial Day Parade. And that's always fun, because we get to, we actually have, that's the only time we get to have really eyes on your equipment in aggregate. I think it would be great if we could build into the process for the beginning of the process for building a new truck, that the department or the commission comes before the Board of Selectmen and outlines your building committee. The way we do for, to actually make a formal request that the Board of Selectmen approve a building committee to construct a new, piece of fire apparatus, the way we do for a school and any other large capital project, so that we can come into the process at the beginning instead of at the end,
Sure.
really.
Yeah, and knowing what's going along the
Yeah.
way too, I'm sure would be
Yeah.
helpful.
So it's just something that I'd love to discuss further with you guys and try and build a little bit more of a process around that.
Yeah.
Any other questions for Zach?
No, I think that makes sense, because as we go, they get only more expensive, don't they? They don't get cheaper.
Just like cars.
Okay, if there's no other questions, then we have a transfer request in front of us to transfer $1,301,000 from Board of Finance Reserve to purchase a new 75 aerial device ladder truck. Is that what you would call it, a ladder truck?
Yes.
Okay, perfect. Motion to approve?
So moved.
David moves. May I have a second?
Second.
Monica seconds. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Thank you. Thank you all, and we appreciate your patience tonight as we went through our agenda. Okay.
You also
Now.
have the drill towers fence replacement.
Okay, sorry.
Number 8.
We'll go to discuss and take action on a request to transfer is that the right number? $14,482 to the drill tower fence replacement fiscal year 22 capital plan, and Sean is here to assist us with this. So it looks like we've planned for this project, but we need some additional money for the quote coming in higher and a motorized gate.
Before Sean goes, if I could, just a little history on the funding. When they originally came, had the request in the budget a few years ago, we cut it out of the budget, and what we did was we took the money that was left over from the 35 Leroy basement study and transferred that to this fencing replacement account, knowing that it was a little bit short of the original estimate they had.
No, I think it was.
It was dead on?
Or just on, or just over, or just under.
It was close, but
It was close, and like Kate was saying, we went out to bid, what, 3 times, I think it was?
Yes.
We went out to bid 3 times to actually have the company finally get a bid in, and it came above and beyond of what we were asking. We are asking for a motorized gate. We've been having issues with non-fire personnel leaving the gate open, so we just wanna try and beef up security up at the top and just try and keep things closed. We're trying to, work it out where it'll be on a electronic timer for it opens at a certain time and then it'll close at a certain time, especially on our drill nights and stuff like that. And we do have other vendors up there, coming in and out, that it'll only stay open for a certain amount of time.
So I support both of those changes. I certainly know the cost of materials during COVID has skyrocketed, and I agree, I've heard about the security issues up there. The only thing that I ask is that Ed Gentile or his designee always has access.
Oh, no, and that's
Okay.
part of it, and
Okay.
we've talked to him, Ed has actually helped us out, because he's actually been helping us clear around the old fence to try and get that, to start getting that removed and stuff like that, because we talked to the fence company and talked to Ed on we're gonna try and keep roughly a 6-foot path on DPW's side of the fence clear, so we don't have this issue later on, because we have a lot of overgrown trees, overgrown
Mhm.
brush and stuff like that, that's intertwined inside the fence that has just really dropped our security.
Okay, good idea.
Just for my education, what non-firemen would have access to the premises?
It's the Porta John Company, it's, Metro North has access up there, because there is a Metro North gate on the far side that they have access,
Okay.
and just other
So periodic other, I'll call them vendors. for lack of a better word.
vendors, but
Okay.
just other vendors.
Is there anyone else besides Ed that might need access to that property?
I don't think so.
There's, as everybody knows, most of us we're all volunteer firemen.
Mhm.
We all work, a bunch of us work for the town, so it's a simple phone call if somebody needs to get up, to get in there.
Mhm.
We have people that can either run up, or we might be able to try and even do it on our phones. I don't even know where we're going with it. So we are gonna, if somebody does need to get up there, but it's also depending on who it is. We don't just want anybody random going up
Of
there.
course. I agree with that. Any other questions?
One quick one, you don't have cameras there, right?
No, we do not. We don't have, there's no internet or anything up there, so we've thought of that, but it's just trying to get internet or trying to figure out how to get remote devices up there is hard.
Doesn't work. Okay, thanks.
Okay, if there are no other questions, then I'll entertain a motion to approve transfer from Board of Finance Reserve of $14,482 to the fence replacement at the drill tower.
So moved.
Kip moves, may I have a second?
Second.
David seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Good to go. Thanks very much. Okay, now we'll go back to number 5, discuss and take action on a request to transfer $157,580 to accrued leave redemption, fiscal year '21.
So, when an employee separates service, we have to pay out any unused vacation time they have, and then depending on their union, their hire date, we may have a sick payout or a comp time payout. We started, probably about 10 years ago, we started budgeting, I'd say a modest amount, for this purpose. And we do try, generally speaking, to fund it out of, find the funds in somebody's payroll line. But one of the things that happened this year is we had a number of retirements. We had 2 longtime employees retire with significant payouts, and they retired at the end of the fiscal year, so there was not a lot of savings to be had from the fact that they were leaving. Hence the size of the request.
Questions for Kate? Thank you very much for your good questions today, David. That was, allowed Kate to expand upon.
Yeah, her answers were great. Thank you for that.
Any other questions for Kate on this one?
Nope.
Nope, all
Nope.
right. Then I will entertain a motion to approve the transfer of $157,850 from a variety of salary accounts and medical insurance line items to the accrued leave redemption.
Move.
Monica moves. May I have a second? Sarah seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. Okay. Discuss and take action on a request to transfer $24,601 to various salary accounts for fiscal year '21.
Okay, just get my papers. These are contractual wage increases that occurred in fiscal '21 for the Public Works Union after the contract was settled. If you recall, when we budget, if there are open contracts, we put an estimate for the amount of the settlement in the salary contingency line that we then have to transfer out to those line items based on, based on what employees are there and what their salaries are. So that is what this transfer is doing.
Questions for Kate? No? Okay. I'll entertain a motion to approve a transfer of $24,061 from the general fund salary contingency and the sewer fund salary contingency to the transfer station full-time salary, parks facility maintenance full-time salary, and sewer full-time salary accounts.
So moved.
Kit moves. I saw David's hand. We'll take that as a second. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, thank you. Discuss and take action on a request to transfer $207,420 to various salary accounts for fiscal year '22.
So, about a month ago, you voted on the pay plan, and this represents the monies that needed to be transferred out of the salary contingency account to make those raises.
Any questions for Kate on this?
The only question I had, which I didn't ask before,
Mm-hmm.
so this is it for the year though, for the contractual raises? This will cover for fiscal year 21 to 22?
This covers, employees that existing,
Correct.
that's not to say that we couldn't have something happen during the year, a promotion
Right.
or something
Correct.
like that. But yes, this is,
Our
so
current
anybody who was in
situation.
place at July 1,
Correct.
this covers them.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll entertain.
Can I say one more thing?
Yes,
Sorry.
of course.
The town hall contract is open.
Right.
So we
this
could have
is-
another impact.
We could have another, if we
Going
settle that before the end of the fiscal year, you could have another one.
Do we know a potential number for that?
If I did, I wouldn't tell you in public.
But wouldn't that
I shouldn't
wouldn't it
ask
take
that
effect?
question.
We have already put we have put funds aside for
Got
that.
it.
Okay.
That's a known number, that's all I need to know, I guess.
It is a known number.
Got it, thank you.
And would those salary changes take effect at the time the contract was settled or at the turn of the fiscal year?
That would all depend on what we agreed to.
Contract.
Okay, all right. All right, I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfer of $207,420 from general fund salary contingency, sewer fund salary contingency, and parking fund salary contingency to the listed accounts.
So moved.
Kit moves. Do I have a second?
Second?
David seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Okay, great, thank you. All right. Now, number 10, discuss and take action on a request to transfer $9,700 to software maintenance and support fiscal year '22.
Right. So, I think Jeremy, explained it pretty well in his form, so I told him he didn't need to come tonight. Don't ask me too many questions. We're switching to a new software, and we were supposed to go live in June, and they weren't quite comfortable with the go live date. They were pressing really hard. The company that the existing software was with had been saying, for like a year, nope, you've got to buy a year of support or nothing. And so we weren't going to do it. And then we were able to, in June, get them to agree to
3 months.
allowing us to buy a portion. So Jeremy just felt he wanted that security of pushing the go-live date back a bit.
Makes sense.
So we do have a go-live date of Tuesday, the 20th.
So they were basically trying to push the lever by saying, if you don't go for a year, you get nothing?
I think so, yeah.
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 So stay with us.
Yeah.
Wrong.
I think it's smart to have a backup plan.
Mm-hmm.
Yep.
Okay, if there are no further questions on this transfer, I'll entertain a motion to approve the transfer of $9,700 from contingency to software maintenance and support for planning and zoning. Sarah moves. May I have a second?
Second.
Monica seconds. Any further discussion? All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, great.
Can I make a request?
Yes.
When we say contingency, there are a whole heck of a
Yeah.
lot of contingency accounts
Mhm.
around. If we could specify which one.
Sure.
Just for clarity purposes.
Yeah, I mean, that is the name of the, I guess, we could put general fund contingency on that one, because that.
Okay,
She
all
did,
right.
like, if you notice on the other one, she says salary, general fund
Yeah,
salary.
she had that specified on the prior ones,
Okay.
which is.
Boy, the
I just-
question came up.
I think,
Yeah.
I
agree.
think
Yeah,
you're suffering here from those of us who are so familiar with this, and we just, we know what it is.
you guys live it automatically when you see
No, I like
say a
that.
certain
Yes, how
word,
many
you know which
17
account it is.
contingency
I got
General
it.
fund
Yeah.
versus
Yes.
Board of Finance.
Thank
you.
Right,
Yeah.
yep.
Yeah.
Okay. All right, I think this is our last transfer. Discuss and take action on a request to transfer $57,627 to Police Communications fiscal '22.
Yeah, so this one's all mine. So when I proposed the budget to you last year, I proposed hiring the third shift of dispatchers in
Mhm.
January because of the length of time it typically takes us to advertise and search for dispatchers. In the late spring, one of our existing dispatchers resigned. So we were doing a search to replace that person. And the search was just concluded at the end of June, beginning of July, and we actually identified 4 really good candidates. So I asked Jen, let's take a look at what would it cost us if we wanted to bring all 4 on early. So we have some savings from the fact that this one dispatcher had resigned and has not been employed, in the new fiscal year. And we also talked to the chief and Captain Shredders, and we talked about timing and training, and they feel they can only train 2 at a time. So what we're proposing is to replace the vacancy and bring one of the third shift dispatchers on August 1st, to bring 2 more of the third shift on October 1st. So basically, we would offer to all 4 of the candidates we identified at this time. And what we need to do that is $57,000.
Do you think you can keep them
Yeah, I was gonna say.
Do we think we can keep them?
If
Yeah,
you
I
offer
mean-
October 1st.
till October?
Yeah.
Exactly.
I don't know,
Okay.
but we won't know if we don't ask.
No, that's right.
And that's what, if you pass this tonight and the Board of Finance passes it next week, we will contact
Yep.
those candidates and
Okay.
tell them that this is what, we want to hire them effective October 1st. They were all told during the interviews that we planned to hire 3 additional in January, so,
So to the point of not missing out on good talent, if the difference is that they need to take a job now, can't wait till October, what can we do to change the training schedule to train 4 instead of 2 at a time? Anything?
I didn't contemplate that, I didn't ask the
Okay.
chief
They said
that.
they preferred 2 at a time.
They felt, yeah, I think, I think our capacity, with training, the certified training officers, is what they were considering.
Yeah, I just feel like there's a risk there.
But they were willing to wait until January, or they were
They were,
aware.
they were aware that we would be
Yeah.
hiring again in January. Whether or not they're willing to wait until January, I
Right.
don't know.
Okay.
Well, can you come back to us if that ends up being the situation?
Sure?
Because I don't know what the delta is, right? 4 hires now versus waiting till October for 2 additional hires.
Right.
And if there's any additional training expenditures we would have to outlay to get them trained in some other way. I'm not sure, so.
Well, we, assuming the Board of Finance approves this transfer as well, when we contact them, if that's the problem we have, if we run into that and they say, I need to go now, then we'll come back. We'll I'll discuss with the chiefs, see what they can do.
Okay. Any further questions? All right, entertain a motion to approve $57,627 transferred from the general fund contingency to full-time salary, holiday pay, social security, medical insurance, and dental insurance for dispatchers.
So moved.
David moves, you have a second?
Second.
Kip seconds, any further discussion? All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Great. Okay, thank you. We have appointments this evening. I'm gonna take the Area 9 Cable Council appointments together, reappoint Jim Cameron and Dave Devers to the Area 9 Cable Council for a term ending June 30th, 2023. Motion to approve?
So-
I move.
Monica
Second.
moves, Kip seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Great, thank you. And I always want to take the opportunity to thank TV 79, Jim and Dave and their team for everything they do for us this past year, what they're gonna be doing in this room, so.
Absolutely.
They're awesome.
Thank you.
And they get us money to do this stuff too, which is great. And our Parks and Rec appointment, we're gonna hold on that until we have the opportunity to interview the third candidate, and then we'll make a decision on filling the 2 vacancies. So then we'll move directly into minutes. We have meeting minutes of June 1st special meeting. Motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
David moves. May I have a second?
A second.
Kip seconds. Okay. Monica abstains. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, that's the 4 of us. Great. We have special meeting minutes of June 21st. Okay, there's no changes here. Motion to approve as presented. Monica moves. May I have a second? Sarah seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Thank you. And then we have regular meeting minutes of June 21st. Any corrections or additions? Hearing none, I'll entertain a motion to approve as presented.
So moved.
David moves. Second?
Second.
Kip seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay, terrific. Agenda review.
I had 2 items I was curious about.
Yep.
Pursuant to the concerns of the residents in Little Brook, I'd love to know if we can get an update on to what the outstanding items are, including the survey for trees, or do we need to hear from the Darien Land Trust? What are the next steps for us, for the residents? One of the issues that concerns me that came up last Friday is the amount of flooding. We know that having more trees and more green in the ground helps to hold the ground. And if we remove trees, is that going to affect the ground table? And will that create some new flooding issues in that area?
Sure.
And so I would, I'd love to obviously help prevent some of that from happening, but I'd love to have an update and see, obviously, what trees are ours and what can we save.
So, I'll just take a moment to say
Yeah.
that the survey has been ordered. It's
Okay,
in
great.
process.
Thank you.
And we actually held on the public hearing on the posted trees till we have a greater
Right.
idea of the scope of the project. Because I know that the folks at Sellex and Dunlop Woods wanted to know what was gonna be taken out adjacent to their property. Or if it's actually on the property of Sellex Woods or Dunlop Woods, that has yet to be determined. So
Yeah.
I'm happy to get you a greater discussion on next steps.
I think that'd be great.
Yeah.
Just,
Does-
if I may, out of curiosity, for the property that is, I guess, the DOT property for
Right.
which they have right of way, does the town have any input to that whatsoever? I mean,
No.
that seems, I was gonna say, that seems to me, a legal right of way issue between the DOT and Eversource, and we wouldn't really have any say in that.
The only thing that I've done to date is to encourage that DOT ask for some replantings on their property. but Eversource doesn't have to even post the trees that they want to remove or prune on DOT property.
Okay.
So we really don't have jurisdiction there, so it's about, you know, trying to have some conversations.
And part of the proposed replanting plan includes the idea of trying to preserve or reestablish the, I call it the green screen, if you will, to help with some of the visibility issues, like the one resident was talking about, the train tracks.
Yeah, and I think it, you know, the planting plan that has been presented to the neighbors it's a first draft, from what I
Sure.
understand,
Yeah.
and it's meant to be a point of negotiation.
Right.
I know that Eversource is committed to the idea of creating a pollinator environment. So I think that's great, but a pollinator environment doesn't always necessarily mean a green screen.
Right.
So that's where there has to be some back and forth and, you know, discussion and negotiation
Sure.
on what can go back in there that won't grow taller than 15 feet,
Right.
right? But you know what? There's a positive here too. If you go out to Little Brook, which I encourage everyone to do, so you can actually visualize the trees that they want to take down. There's a big berm, you know, not unlike the berm at the Darien train station. So, you know, if you plant something that only is gonna grow to 15 feet high and
May
you
not
can get
reach-
permission to plant it up higher on the berm, that would be a win, right?
Yeah.
That would be a win.
Yeah, it creates that green, yeah.
Yeah. So, absolutely, next
Thank
steps.
you, I appreciate it. The second item pertains to what so many in town were dealing with right on Friday. And, you know, I hear the instance that it's a 50-year storm, but I feel like we're having more of these 50 and 100-year storms, and residents are struggling. I know we have repetitive properties, but I think so many felt effects from this storm that don't normally. And I don't know if there's a way for us to, I don't know if it's forming a committee or a commission or whatever it is, but to kind of look at what are some things that we could be proactively doing to help mitigate maybe some of the issues in the future. And I don't know if it's, you know, is there any way we can have input with that railroad bridge on Route 1, right? Like, I don't know if there is, maybe there is, like, but so many struggled, and if it's maybe going out more to clear off some of the storm sewer tops that get the debris after we've had so many storms, they were so many filled with debris, and I don't know if that was addressed beforehand. I don't know, Ed wasn't here. You know, what are some things that we can do?
So this sounds like a great conversation. Maybe we can grab Ed for sidewalks and flooding, and maybe we could invite our friend Craig Flaherty to come. Since he is kind of our resident expert, he was engaged in the past studies about
Yep.
flooding in town. Because I know there's things that some of them we're doing in terms of all of the sewer work that we're doing, the I&I studies and all of that.
That's exactly what I was
So,
thinking about.
yeah.
That clearly so many of those issues were just enormously present.
Yes, and now, and
yes.
you can see why it's so important to
100%.
do that work, and I'm really glad that that's already moving forward.
Right.
So that's a good thing. But, you know, I think it's always good to revisit the issues. You know, what are the issues? Aside from Mother Nature, right?
Right, we can't control that, no.
What are the controllable items?
Right.
And that would be helpful to talk about that from time to time, so sure.
Thank you.
Yep.
We're building huge underground galleries on Oxford's property,
So
just to retain the water.
right, and I think that's
At
important.
a
Look
cost
at-
of about
Right.
$500,000.
It's huge, and look at Heights Road, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
I know that work isn't completed, but, you know, we still see it's a continuing issue.
Well, the tanks are completed at Heights Road.
So,
They've
so a
started
little,
flooding.
a little color on that. The detention system is completed.
Right.
It was functioning. It filled with, it's a 1 million gallon detention system. It
Mhm.
filled with 900,000 gallons of water on Friday.
It's unbelievable.
It was not over capacity, which
Right.
is an interesting thing.
But there was still flooding.
There was still flooding in the Heights, and I spoke to Patrick McMahon from Federal Realty, and as you know, Craig Flaherty. We should bring him, because
Yep.
he's the engineer on that project. Tying back to what Federal promised in their zoning approval. They didn't promise to fix the flooding
No,
on
no.
Heights Road. They promised to mitigate it,
Yep.
which in fact, I think they did. I think it helped. There are some things they want to check, like were all the,
Was it live?
that were all the connections into the system live? So
Yep.
Craig is doing that after-action work. But, you know, any flooding is a hardship,
Mhm.
especially for commercial businesses. But if I wasn't around, you know, in town service in 2007, but I believe that those commercial businesses had 4 or 5 feet of water in them.
They
That
did.
storm was a
Yep.
phenomenal
There
storm,
was,
absolutely.
there was 3, I think Craig gave the number today, 36 inches of water in the liquor store in 2007.
Right.
Larry's.
Yeah.
Yep.
Yeah. And so it didn't fix it completely, but I think it helped. I think it helped.
And anything we can do helps.
Yeah.
The other question is, now that we have seen some of the issues with the sanitary sewer and the backups, what happens? I hear anecdotally there was a pump station down or whatever, but
No.
No, that's not
Okay,
true. They
okay,
all were
good.
running at
Perfect, thank you.
capacity, but never down.
Just to give you an example,
Yeah.
Ed talked about today, the normal would be 1 million gallons per day.
we saw a lot more
And
than that.
4.8.
4.8.
Million. And yeah, it's, you know, but because of all the issues, did we identify issues that may have otherwise maybe not have been seen on the INI, but now we know that there are connection issues? I mean, are there things that we can do? I don't know.
Yeah, so one of the things he talked about today was 24 hours after the rain had stopped,
Mhm.
we were still seeing seriously heavy flow of regular water, not sanitary.
Right.
Into the system.
Right.
Which means that people have some pumps connected.
Correct.
And they're pumping out their basements
Correct.
into it. And that's something.
Or groundwater's
or-
getting in.
Yeah, groundwater
Right.
could be getting in,
Right.
but the level of flow indicates that
Indicates.
there's illicit connections. That's, you know, to a certain extent, we're relying on people to do the right thing, and disconnect.
Yeah.
Because it's hard to identify them individually.
Well, and it creates a domino effect for so many other residents.
Yeah, I think-
Sewage backing up.
You might want to have a meeting dedicated
I
just
agree
to the
with that.
topic.
Mhm. I agree with that. Mhm. Anything else for agenda review? We'll get the sidewalks back on there, I promise.
Yeah.
Yep.
Thank you.
Okay, then I'll entertain a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Kip moves, David seconds. All those in favor, please say aye.
Bye.
Great, thanks, everybody. Next meeting is a joint department heads meeting. So Monica, that's once a quarter.